dia, hein? Tá chegando. Tá chegando. Marcar aqui o dia. Onde que tá começando? Pegar aqui. Olha assim, cara. Deu uma caída monstro.
É a famosa inflação, que depois da pandemia ela está importante de forma atípica no Brasil e no mundo. Você acha que realmente o caminho está certo, que a inflação, vamos dizer, a guerra não está ganha, mas está em caminho de ser ganha?
Olha, Rubens, esse é um ponto importante, talvez seja de fato o tema mais importante do cenário econômico hoje, né, no mundo nesse período pós-pandemia. Porque a inflação, no fim, foi o efeito colateral do combate à pandemia. O combate à pandemia teve isolamento social, que diminuiu a produção, né, de produtos, né, e serviços, e muita transferência de renda para famílias e empresas que gerou muita demanda, né? Então era muita demanda de um lado e falta de produto do outro, os preços subiram. Durante um bom tempo, esse não era o foco da política econômica global, ainda o foco era combater a pandemia, mas a partir de 22, quando a pandemia foi ficando para trás, né, e sobrou inflação, o foco passou a ser arrumar a casa e trazer a inflação para baixo. E eu acho que, olhando principalmente a dinâmica no ano passado, a gente viu os índices de preços dos Estados Unidos, da Europa, mas aqui no Brasil também, saindo de perto de 10, 12% para casa dos 3, 4%. E os bancos centrais, como você falou, pisaram no freio, subiram os juros. Havia muito receio, né, de que aquela alta rápida dos juros provocasse uma recessão global. Então o mundo públicos na Europa e no Brasil. Então sobrou digamos, um rabicho de inflação aqui que está mais teimoso, né? Está mais difícil de reduzir. A inflação caiu, mas ainda não caiu para um nível que era antes da pandemia, e eu acho que o que falta é equacionar as contas públicas.
What are they? Let's start with what is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most widely adopted digital asset in the world. It is a digital currency that operates on a decentralized network, meaning it is not controlled by any central authority. Bitcoin functions through computers known as nodes, employing transactions that are meticulously recorded in a publicly accessible ledger called the blockchain. This innovative structure ensures transparency and security in the central authority. Bitcoin functions through computers known as nodes, employing transactions that are meticulously recorded in a publicly accessible ledger called the blockchain. This innovative structure ensures transparency and security in the verification and recording of Bitcoin transactions. While it was created as a form of internet-native money, today many view Bitcoin beyond a form of payment, and some investors view Bitcoin as a store of value, a potential hedge against inflation, or a bet on blockchain innovation and adoption. Until now, investing in Bitcoin has largely meant going through a crypto exchange, which can come with complexities around cost, storage, and taxation. But the launch of Bitcoin ETFs, or exchange-traded funds, is helping make Bitcoin more convenient and accessible to investors. ETFs are commonly used and available within a traditional brokerage account alongside stocks and bonds. And they allow you to gain exposure to Bitcoin without needing to navigate the burdens of buying and storing it directly. For more information, visit iShares.com.
426. 4 mais que aqui. Mais que o Google. E no 360. 61. Quase 10 Ethereum por semana. O cara tá bom na fita, hein? Inteiro por semana. Mas também é um poder de processamento que ser gigante. ter feito em AI. Olha, bem definida. Vê, ó. Vai dar uma bit live gigante. Os caras vão falar de Bitcoin. Bitcoin, coin.
Concerned that a distributed, decentralized, open public money could potentially be used for bad things, sitting on a ski resort in
worth and its value here. I would love to get your reaction, especially as some of the financial industry elites and figureheads are continuing to cast some doubt here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brad. What do I think about Jeffrey Epstein's banker being concerned that a distributed, decentralized, open public money could potentially be used for bad things, sitting on a ski resort in Davos? I don't really care. I don't know why anyone cares, right? I mean, that guy used for bad things, sitting on a ski resort in Davos. I don't really care. I don't know why anyone cares, right? I mean, that guy knows when money's used for bad things. So it's a weird opinion of his. And my pet rock was up, as you said, 160% last year. It performed well against the dollar. So I don't know. I don't really care what that guy has to say about Bitcoin. I don't know why anybody does.
When
run in Chicago, just checking my phone, getting caught up on everything, wanted to give my 2 cents. One, we got to find ways to support open source Bitcoin developers, period. I mean, Bitcoin's got to be one of the only truly distributed, censorship resistant, decentralized software networks we have as a species today. I'd make the argument it's the biggest. It's the only distributed, censorship-resistant software network that is operating at the scale it's operating. It's worth now over $1 trillion in market cap. It is open source Bitcoin contributors that support the software, that support the network, that maintain the libraries. In my history, my decade-long history in Bitcoin, I've never heard that as a controversial take, opinion, idea, is that we have to find them no strings attached support. We don't want them supported with a bias, with a directive, with a motive. We want funding for open source contributors to build what they deem is necessary to support the project. Now, if someone builds something that you don't agree with or that you don't like, don't run it. Someone built Bitcoin Cash. I didn't update my node. Someone built Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Gold. I didn't update my node. It's a permissionless system. People are going to build whatever they want, whenever they want, no matter what. If you don't like it, don't run the software. That's how Bitcoin works. Now, if you want developers and the network to adopt something that you're interested in and that you think the rest of the network would be interested in, then you advocate for it, you gather support for it, and we arrive at distributed consensus. Does it seem inefficient, frustrating, slow? Yes. It's the cost we bear to have the best and hardest man-made money in the history of our species. And so, at the end of the day, I've never found this controversial. I'd be shocked if it was controversial. We have to find ways to support our open source community in Bitcoin. Number 2, we should never deem anyone else responsible for funding. As an individual, you don't ever have to do anything you don't want to do in Bitcoin. Now, I personally believe, as an individual, we should all feel some sense of responsibility towards helping developers get funded. Because if Bitcoin is benefiting you, if Bitcoin is helping you, if Bitcoin is part of the future of the world that you want to see, open source development in this industry is paramount. It's the nucleus. I mean, it's a software project, guys. We're running code at the end of the day. We got to find ways to maintain it and support it and ensure it has the longevity to live for centuries to come. So we should all be helpful, whether that's literal funding, education, networking, whatever that means. But if you as an individual don't want to cut the check, no problem. The second that you get in the way of other people cutting the check, now that is where I personally would draw the line. You got to let people do what they want to do in this industry, in this network, as long as they're not being malicious or there's any harmful intent. I mean, come on, I don't have to give that disclaimer. We're adults. There should be obvious lines drawn there. But for funding Bitcoin open source development, I mean, if you're getting in the way of that, if you don't want to fund it, don't fund it. No problem. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do in this open distributed network. If you're, intently getting in the way of others, now that's where I think there's rightful questioning. And then the last is doing it all in private. I've lived through the block size wars. In my opinion, we have public discourse. Yes, it is challenging. Sometimes people are offended. Again, it's the cost we bear to have a truly distributed system. There is no central planning in this network. Maybe sometimes we forget that the amount of central planning in our lives has maybe allowed us to forget just, how difficult it is for a collective species to move forward in one unified direction. It's tough. It's hard. But we got to do it out in the public. There are mailing lists, there's GitHub, there's Twitter, there's Spaces, there's Nostr, there's all sorts of ways to have public discourse on what we think the direction of this project should be. No one is bigger than Bitcoin. And so we all come with individual opinions or opinions representing a corporation, and we arrive at consensus. But we should never have closed-door meetings or any threats or manipulation or anything that isn't to the public eye. I mean, it's an open source project. It is software for the collective people, and that is extremely dangerous. So my 2 cents, listen, I'm just a node on the network like everyone else. My opinion, always find ways to support open source developers. If the community now is split on that, I'd be curious as to why. If we don't find ways to support our open source engineers, I don't think Bitcoin's going to last centuries. 2, if you don't want to do something, don't do it. But if you're getting in the way of other people supporting Bitcoin developers, I'd be really curious to hear why. And 3, you gotta do it in the public. You gotta do it in the public. Closed door New York meetings, we've been through that. That was 2017. I've been through the block size wars. We're beyond that. We're better than that. Let's just do it in the public. I think we're all on the same team. If we have public discourse on what's going on, what people think the future of the network is, how developers should be funded, I guarantee and promise you we arrive at a conclusion. Sometimes it may be nasty, sometimes it may be hostile. Whatever. Toughen your chin, Buttercup. We got work to do. Let's do the hard work for the best, hardest money in the history of our species. We shouldn't be afraid of that. So be public about it. It's not getting anyone else's way. If you don't want to do something, don't do it. And support open source engineers. It's my 2 cents, personally as an individual. Take it for what it's worth. be violent and force people to do things against their will. So the idea of like, well, El Salvador was on the dollar, so for them they could. It's like they weren't born that way. Bukele wanted his own currency. Tomorrow he could do it. So, to me, it's the idea. He said, I'm gonna adopt hard money and forgive my role in controlling monetary supply and money within my population. I'm going to be very tough on crime. I'm going to lean into aesthetics of my country. He's leaned very much into the volcano, the beach side, and I'm going to recruit talent. Hard money, no crime, aesthetics, talent.
Yeah.
I fucking love it. I mean, I fucking love it. And I mean.
And I'm from the United States. Insolvency, bank lines, election year, Putin's price hikes, supply chain. Come on. Wait, of course inflation is going up because of Putin, wheat, and the supply chain problems, please. And nothing to do with all the money that we've printed. And it seems pretty obvious that the best strategy of your dollar is, your hard assets. And what has gone up? What's at a record high? Gold, real estate, Bitcoin, right? Everything that's got a scarcity argument. I just think Bitcoin's the better option of those. I mean, you're storing, I'll do my typical gold rant. You're storing value in something that we don't know how much of it there is, right? Nobody has a decent estimate on how much gold you could dig out of the ground, right? Real estate is reasonably fixed, but you can always put another penthouse on top of what's existing, right? Bitcoin is the most provably fixed of your major places to hide during a dollar tsunami.
Yeah. And I mean, guys, I don't think people appreciate what's the Bitcoin price where Bukele could call the IMF and say, I don't ever need another loan again. You guys can delete my number. What? Do you appreciate how revolutionary that would be for someone to divorce the need of a perpetual line of credit just to run their country from the West and say, I got it from here. We bought a bunch of Bitcoin. We've been investing in our future by holding our energy and our time in something that persists it. And we've been recruiting talent, been very tough on crime, place is clean. And we have a lot of natural, beautiful resources, and we're good. But we appreciate the loans over the years, but we got it from here. That would change the world in such a material way, only possible with something like Bitcoin. There's no way that a country could persist their time and energy in anything else.
Or are we going to invent a token, a physical good like an artifact, right? So the first step for Satoshi Nakamoto was understand what money is and then realize that we need to create a list, okay? Next section, time. This is where I'm really gonna fuck your brain up, but just keep bearing with me here. If you look at the Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi talks about time a lot. So these 3 are references to time out of 8. So almost half of the references in Bitcoin are about time. If you look at the 3rd section in the Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi talks about it as a timestamp server. I just love Bitcoin history. If I ever am not working on strike, I want to be a Bitcoin historian. If you look at the comments that Satoshi put in the initial code of Bitcoin, he talks about Bitcoin as a time chain. He does it multiple times. Proof of work to everyone, and the block is added to the time chain. So time is clearly extremely important to Satoshi Nakamoto in creating this invention. Why? Why do you guys think that's the case? It's because in order to have a list of who owes what to whom, you have to have the absolute order of the transactions. If I have $10 and I spend $10 to my friend Bob and then another $10 to my friend Carol, one of those transactions is invalid. It won't go through. So the question is, which one was spent first? Does Bob get the money or does Carol get the money? It's incredibly important to have a sequential order in time of a list. And so the question then is, if Bitcoin is a distributed system, who's in charge of its time? This is why Satoshi was so focused on time. It's very subtle to understand how Bitcoin was built by Satoshi Nakamoto, but it's super important, is that if you're building an independent system that has no outside influence, who's in charge of time? Is Bitcoin's time from a clock? Is Bitcoin's time on my iPhone? If my iPhone dies, is Bitcoin going to stop working? Does Bitcoin keep time on Joe Biden's laptop or on Amazon's web servers or with Elon Musk, right? This is the problem, is if you're creating a money list, a ledger that's going to keep track of who owes what to whom, and it needs to be truly decentralized and distributed, who's in charge of time? And what Satoshi came to the conclusion is that Bitcoin has to create its own fucking time. That's the mind-blowing thing about this invention, is he said, I can't trust anyone else's time, because that time can mess with the system. So in order for Bitcoin to be its own independent digital money, I have to create my own time. Okay, so now we're gonna get into time. Bear with me, keep bearing with me. The only thing I need you guys to know about time in this whole presentation is that it has a direction. Hence the term arrow of time, right? Time has a direction. There's an arrow of time. All this means is that the past is different than the future, right? I was younger in the past. I will be older in the future. I remember the past. I cannot remember the future. The past I cannot change. The future I don't know. Do you understand? This is what's called the arrow of time. Time moves in this direction, okay? Now, in the physical world, this is very obvious, as I just explained, right? I mean, nobody can go back in time when they were a kid, and nobody knows where they're going to be 20 years from now, right? But the key thing about the physical world that makes society work is that the past is certain and the future is unknown. If that was not the case, if we all knew the future and we can all go back in the past, we'd all be fucking dead at this point, right? It's the atoms in the universe that allow us to live through time like we do. The problem is, in the digital world, we don't have time. All we have is information. The physical world is built of atoms in the universe and physical things. The digital world is just built of bytes of data. So in the digital world, the number 10, I do know the number before it, and I do know the number after it, right? I do know the past and the future. If numbers were time, I wouldn't be able to know the future is 11 and the past is 9, right? Or if I were watching a movie, I could rewind time to the beginning scene of the movie, or I can fast forward time to the very end and watch how the movie ends, right? So the problem is, in the digital world, we don't have this arrow of time, right? You guys keeping with me? This is a lot. So if Bitcoin's going to design its own time, it's good. I sound like a nut job, but if Satoshi is going to design its own time, I want you guys to understand, we don't need a precise clock like we're running the Olympics. We don't care about milliseconds, right? This is not what we're looking for. Bitcoin needs an arrow of time, as I'm describing. We need to somehow replicate the time we have in the real world. We need to somehow have an unchanging past and an undetermined future, okay? Satoshi talks about this. He says, proof of work is the only solution he's found to make this a reality, okay? To implement a distributed timestamp server on a peer-to-peer basis, so to translate that into normal speak, if I'm going to fucking invent time on the internet without any trust, that's what he's saying. We need to use proof of work. It is the only way that this is possible. So what is proof of work? Proof of work is a form of cryptographic proof in which one party proves to others that a certain amount of a specific computational effort has been expended. Verifiers can subsequently confirm this expenditure with minimal effort of their part. For those of you that don't know what that means, this is my version of it in Jack language. Proof of work is proof that you did a certain amount of work to guess a random number. The person verifying that can make the work as hard as they want, and they can verify it instantly, okay? Now, the reason that Satoshi uses proof of work and that this is so important is that this is a piece of data that the digital world can understand. Let me go back for a second. I didn't plan this, but do you guys understand this slide here? The digital world doesn't understand atoms. It doesn't understand energy. It doesn't have an arrow of time, right? If I'm counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I know the future and I know the past. So the internet, the digital world, the bytes of data doesn't know what time is, right? The physical world does because of atoms, because of energy, right? And so what Satoshi is saying is that proof of work is the only way for us to take energy from the physical world, from this world, and turn it into a digital thing that the internet can understand. Do you understand? So proof of work doesn't require trust. Someone can give me proof of work, and I don't need to trust that they did the work. I can verify it myself. Proof of work can be done by anyone. Any of you can do it, right? You don't need to get a degree at a college. You don't need to give me your resume. Anyone can do it. It has unforgeable costliness, just like gold does. This is what gives Bitcoin a commodity premium. It's costly to do the work. And it allows Bitcoin to establish an undisputable history of events. The future work is unknown, and the past work is easy to verify. The key to Bitcoin and Satoshi unlocking this whole thing and why we're all here is that he found a trustless piece of info, a trustless piece of data that can be produced by the physical world with atoms and with energy, linking this universe to his digital scarce money. More Satoshi quotes. So he writes, in this paper, we propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer distributed timestamp server to generate computational proof of the chronological order of transactions. So proof of work gives Bitcoin its arrow of time. If you actually look at Bitcoin blocks, not to get too technical with you guys, but all they are transactions and the proof of work as a timestamp. Bitcoin's just a timestamp server. So Satoshi is etching time with proof of work. If you look at the actual Bitcoin blockchain, we can watch this. Now, for some reason, Bitcoin block explorers work time in reverse, so time's actually going this way. But you can see the purple is the known past that cannot be changed. The orange is the uncertain future. When you guys use a Bitcoin wallet and your transaction's unconfirmed, that's what that means. We don't know the future, we can't change the past, and we are living in the eternal now. So this motherfucker, Satoshi Nakamoto, created digital time. Insane. Insane. Now, is he done? Has he solved time? Can we move on to the next topic? Almost. Super close. There's one last piece. In order for us to have distributed consensus, so again, we're building a money that's information. It's a giant list, right? In order for all of us to be able to agree on the sequencing of that list, we have to keep in mind of the speed of light. And this, I'll come back to this because this is why shitcoins don't work, like Solana. So this is important. But the speed of light is, call it around 50 milliseconds, right? This is the fastest information can travel, okay? So the reason that Satoshi was almost done solving for time in a digital realm is because think of Bitcoin The blocks are like a clock. Every single block is like tick, 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 right? Bitcoin, each block is like Bitcoin keeping track of time, okay? Now, if the proof of work remained the same difficulty, more work would speed up the clock, right? Does that make sense? So that would leave Bitcoin, if we sped up the clock too fast, we would violate the speed of light. All of us wouldn't be able to get into consensus in a distributed way because Bitcoin would be moving too fast, right? Makes sense? So if Bitcoin was the same amount of difficulty, someone could get a lot of energy, plow it into Bitcoin, speed up Bitcoin's clock, and leave us out of consensus.
E aí então, rapaz,
explicit, you will not be allowed to spend your money on things the central bank do not want you to spend your money on. And as Christian said, I think that taps into a really quite fundamental point about freedom and human rights. The freedom to transact is not an obvious freedom. We all think about freedom of speech or freedom of association. But without the freedom to transact, my view is very much that the other freedoms don't really exist. It underpins all of the others and it enables them to exist. Whether that consent is tacit or explicit, you will not be allowed to spend your money on things the central bank do not want you to spend your money on. And as Christian said, I think that taps into a really quite fundamental point about freedom and human rights. The freedom to transact is not an obvious freedom. We all think about freedom of speech or freedom of association. But without the freedom to transact, my view is very much that the other freedoms don't really exist. It underpins all of the others and it enables them to exist. Whether that consent is tacit or explicit, you will not be allowed to spend your money on things the central bank do not want you to spend your money on. And as Christian said, I think that taps into a really quite fundamental point about freedom and human rights. The freedom to transact is not an obvious freedom. We all think about freedom of speech or freedom of association. But without the freedom to transact, my view is very much that the other freedoms don't really exist. It underpins all of the others and it enables them to exist. Whether that consent is tacit or explicit, you will not be allowed to spend your money on things the central bank do not want you to spend your money on. And as Christian said, I think that taps into a really quite fundamental point about freedom and human rights. The freedom to transact is not an obvious freedom. We all think about freedom of speech or freedom of association. But without the freedom to transact, my view is very much that the other freedoms don't really exist. It underpins all of the others and it enables them to exist. Whether that consent is tacit or explicit, you will not be allowed to spend your money on things the central bank do not want you to spend your money on. And as Christian said, I think that taps into a really quite fundamental point about freedom and human rights. The freedom to transact is not an obvious freedom. We all think about freedom of speech or freedom of association. But without the freedom to transact, my view is very much that the other freedoms don't really exist. It underpins all of the others and it enables them to exist. Whether that consent is tacit or explicit, you will not be allowed to spend your money on things the central bank do not want you to spend your money on. And as Christian said, I think that
one of the most known funds here out in Asia. You want to say something to everybody?
Yeah, hello guys. So let's make Bitcoin fun again.
Exactly. Let's go for runes. We're all for
Let's
runes
go
here.
for runes. Runes ecosystem gonna hit like 10 billion.
Bullish.
Bullish. Right?
Bullish.
Let's fucking go.
Let's go.
Just not going to do it anymore. I'm not part of that system. So today, April 4th, 2024, I'm going to vote for somebody who I believe actually could make a difference, regardless if he wins. So I'm endorsing and supporting RFK. He's the horse to ride in November. I wish him well. I wish his campaign well. And I hope a lot of people get inspired. Win or lose, I hope people take from this election a strong civic sense that we do need to change things. We do need to move forward. And it's time we heal ourselves in every dimension and respect. I hope that everybody listening understands that. And I hope that people know that we could always make things better. No matter how bad it seems, how bad it gets, we as people can make a heaven or a hell. And the difference is the intent and will and the time. We can fix everything. It just requires the will, and it just requires the commitment over a protracted period of time to get there.
Acho que tá ruim que não caiu também. Caiu tudo, pegou tudo. Solano BNB.
luscious locks, but I'll toss the hood on for you. How are we? The Fed has blown up our financial system. A hell of a Monday, huh?
So do you think, okay, let me ask it to you this way, or put it to you this way. A banking crisis is deflationary. And so when I see Balaji and others saying Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million, it may go up, but that may be because of the Fed's response here. The 2010s were not hyperinflationary. There's no obvious reason why now would be hyperinflationary either.
Yeah, so Kelly, it's actually not that complicated, and I'm excited to try and convey that to America. There's a market term that's used here in Chicago a lot, is demand finds supply. What do I mean by that? If Ken Griffin is going to want to buy the most expensive condo in America, someone will build it for him. Someone will put a 201st floor in Miami's tallest building. If silver's going to 1000x, I will walk into my kitchen right now. I will melt all my silverware and I will sell it at market. If gold is going to rally, Elon Musk will find more on Mars. Bitcoin this is a super important point. Bitcoin is the only monetary instrument in the history of our species that is fixed. It does not matter how much more demand comes into the asset class, Kelly. No one will ever be able to make more of it. There are two things I can guarantee you in my life. One, that I'll die, and the other, that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. And those are what's the two things that I can only value as my life and my Bitcoin. So it is the only fixed supply asset, Kelly. It's not that complicated. It's going to go up because everything else can be issued more. Does that make sense?
Why you've got to explain to me one thing. Why is the supply fixed? And is that because someone says it's fixed who could change their mind?
No, it's a great point and question, Tyler. It's because it's written in the software and the software is distributed. There is no one person to ask. There is no one person to trust. The whole decentralization, is it decentralized so that you could put pictures and NFTs on the blockchain? Is it decentralized so that you could fix gaming? No, it's decentralized so that the defendants of the monetary policy are distributed, is so that it's a network of computers that actually defend the policy and the instrumentation of the monetary asset. That is not the case for Ethereum. That is not the case for any other altcoin. That is not the case for the US dollar. That is not the case for Miami real estate. That is not the case for precious metals. It is the only monetary instrument that has its monetary policy distributed and defended in a sound way.
Forgive me for being dense,
so
but if you say that, that it's because this is the way the software is written and it is immutable, it is unchanged. Why couldn't the software be rewritten, or why couldn't the authors of the software or the guardians of the software write a new software that creates Bitcoin 2.0 with another fixed supply of Bitcoin?
Yeah, so Tyler, I run Bitcoin software, and someone tried to do this. I want you to Google Bitcoin Cash after this interview is over. Someone said, I want to change the rules of Bitcoin. I may want to create more of a supply. I may want to make it faster. I may want to make it do a backflip. I may make it want to store pictures of monkeys drooling on themselves on the blockchain. And they created it, and they created new rules, and they called it Bitcoin Cash. It's a different asset. It's a different instrument. And when someone tries to pay me in it, my software rules that I run in my home in a room over there says, nope, that's invalid. That thing is a piece of poop, and I don't accept it because it is invalidating the rules of the system that were set out by Satoshi Nakamoto over a decade ago. So you can create whatever you want. You want to create FedNow coin, flip a Dookie coin, I don't care. There's 21 million of the things that I run and that I protect and that I save in, and those rules were started a long time ago, and that's what the network runs. So if you change the rules, you're creating a different monetary asset and a different instrument. It doesn't matter.
Jack, did you guys have any effect from SVB's collapse? I know, like you said, you're in Chicago. I don't know if you had any exposure there as sort of a startup, or obviously I would imagine maybe some other, colleagues, clients, you name it. What do you make of all this?
Well, it doesn't matter, right, Kelly? Because the U.S. government, you either got to default on it or deflate it. And so they're backstopping everything. The spigots are wide open. Money printers going burr. So it doesn't matter where your monies are held, is that the government's going to make you whole on it no matter what. Who cares? The only thing that's clear to us and clear to our customers is you cannot hold and save in dollars anymore. I think that there's going to be a new era of the U.S. dollar where inflation will enter a normalized 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. The days of 2% inflation are over.
What if you're wrong, Jack? Because the market, as you know, the market is telling us we've gone from having expected 3.5% inflation last year to just over 2% now for the next 5 years. Again, it's it doesn't see inflation accelerating and picking up from here. Look at the swap lines we just instituted over the weekend. It reiterates the dollar's dominance in the global financial system. And if anything, we're going to be averaging inflation for the next decade that probably looks a lot more like the 2010s we just came from. It was not inflation. And Bitcoin still did very well, by the way. It was not an inflationary period.
Yeah, but Kelly, these swap lines and treating these assets at par that these banks are holding is a load of crap. It's a politically correct way. The swap lines over the weekend were a politically correct way going into an election year for the Federal Reserve to bail out foreign big institutions and not take care of the little guy in the United States of America. Those things aren't trading at par. If they were trading at par, when I walked down to my bank on the corner and I said, I want my money, they'd be able to hand it to me. They can't, Kelly. So this is just a masquerade load of nonsense. If they have to backstop these things with new money, and you're seeing risk on assets, you're seeing scarce assets actually be big winners here. So you could call it inflation because the CPI is a load of nonsense, right? Like the government's going to tell me how the dollar is inflating based on a basket of instruments. Like my Netflix subscription or my Caesar salad doesn't actually tell me how well the dollar is doing or how much it's being devalued. Miami real estate does. Bitcoin does. Bitcoin's up over 50% this year.
Yeah.
You're telling me that the dollar's not inflating? You're out of your mind. I'm not listening to that. The Fed and the whole monetary system is based on trust, and they constantly break that trust. It'd be the equivalent of there's a fire outside of my house. I smell the smoke, and someone's telling me, no, it's just a bunch of teenagers putting on a bonfire. Okay, but I hear one siren. I hear one police siren.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's a bonfire? Yeah, it's a bonfire. Now I hear 10 sirens, 100 sirens. Now my whole community is running out. I'm not going to get up and look outside the window, Kelly, and see what's going on. I don't believe them for a second. You've got to be absolutely crazy to believe the Federal Reserve right now. They're full of it, and I don't have to because I own Bitcoin. There's no one that could deflate my instrument. I get to hold it, save in it. I know the monetary policy. I sleep like a baby, like the baby face that I am.
Jack?
I think you're crazy if you believe the Fed and these swap lines and treating these assets at par. It's a gimmick. It's a scam.
We appreciate your time today. Jack Mallers,
Right, Kelly.
of Strike. Dude, for me to know.
Limit system. We are giving Bitcoiners quicker access to their Bitcoin, better access to this new monetary network. Really, overall, yo, big day, huge day. We have begun rolling out our new limit system. We are giving Bitcoiners quicker access to their Bitcoin, better access to this new monetary network. Really, overall, less friction getting in and out of this new asset class that we all believe in so much, that is Bitcoin. Okay, a quick pro quo. The blog is out. The blog lives where all of our blogs live. Strike.me/blog. It's a good read. It's got some detail in there if you're a blog reader. I'm presenting to you right now. Why am I doing that? I do that for all of our announcements. I do it personally and as a business. Our commitment to transparency. I want to be able to talk to you guys. I want you guys to be able to hear from me when we have things to say, when we're announcing new products. I want to walk you through it, explain our intention, what we're trying to solve for you. I also want to hear what you have to say and what you have to think. I'll get into it in a second, but your feedback is everything to us. I mean, I work for you. My job is to make you happy, solve your problems, give you products that you period. So, I'm obviously fired up. I'm always fired up. This one I'm particularly fired up. Why? Mike is out of the stand. We're ready to rock and roll. Because you guys have been asking for this for so long. It's not just a strike problem. It's an industry problem, and I'll explain why in a second. We'll get into pretty details. But I'm so pumped to deliver what I consider to be an innovation because customers have been begging for it. So boom, I've been using Strike for a while, and while it's nice, it seems they have a weekly outflow limit. Please increase the withdrawal limit. Why the daily limits on how much I can send to cold storage? That's a great question. I'm about to answer it. Can we raise the Bitcoin send limit? 2K right now. Higher withdrawal limits are necessary. 5,000 a week is very low. The mempool is starting to fill up a little bit. These are starting to become real. UTXO management is now part of everyone's vocabulary. We love it. It's a real problem. And honestly, this is huge too. As a Bitcoin-only company, we're here to solve these problems. This is a great example of a business that we live just to give you the Bitcoin experience. We want to be the standard of how you buy it, how you withdraw it, how you access it, how you use Lightning. We want to be the gold standard, the Bitcoin standard of how you guys use Bitcoin. And so we're not working on Dogecoin. We're not building our own blockchain. We're working on the hard problems of an amazing limit system, which may sound boring or weird. Why wouldn't I launch a shitcoin? But for us and the customers that we have and the customers that we want in the future and the world we want to see, we want to give you the best experience when interfacing with Bitcoin. And that's what it means to be Bitcoin only and Bitcoin focused. This is a great example of the type of focus and effort we put into Bitcoin experiences at Strike. Okay, so the main announcement is that we don't have any more withdrawal limits. If you could summarize it in one sentence. Now, that might sound misleading, and I'm going to explain it, so don't you dare direct quote me there. But the takeaway is that there is no $5,000 weekly limit anymore. There is no $2,000 daily limit anymore. That's gone. What you'll now see as this rolls out and you get access, when you click Bitcoin balance, you'll see three things. You'll see your balance, what's available, and what's pending in a bank deposit. You can withdraw all of the available. So there is no $5,000 limit. If available is 10 million, 100 million, a billion, withdraw it all. 10 grand, 100 grand, withdraw it all. $10, $1, 1 penny. You can withdraw whatever's available to you. No limits whatsoever. The only friction is in what is pending. Okay? So here's the announcement. Your weekly limit, your daily limit. Hey, Jack, can you raise my daily? I'm trying to do this UTXO thing. No such thing anymore. Everyone has no limits associated in a dollar-denominated fashion. You can withdraw whatever's available. Now, why isn't everything available? That is a phenomenal question. I am going to explain it. If you look at this UI, let me go back for a second. You look at the pending on the bottom right there. $1,500, almost $1,600 is pending in bank deposits. The main problem that all of us face in this space, not just Strike. You'll see different companies. There's always a really long wait time, or there's certain limits, or there's a combination of both. What all of us are trying to figure out is how to deal with the fiat system that is so utterly and completely broken. Okay? ACH payments, these bank transfers, are the only things, at least in the Strike system, that end up being pending for some amount of time, not withdrawable immediately, is ACH transfers. When you Google, how long does an ACH transfer take? It's going to say 1 to 3 business days. That's a lie. Some ACHs don't achieve finality, like that is our money as a company that you deposited, for 60 days, 2 months. Sometimes it takes 1 day. Sometimes it takes 7 days. Sometimes it takes 17 days. It is an unbelievable problem. No one knows the rules. No one knows how it works. I'm not joking. None of these nobody really knows. It's an incredibly difficult problem as a business that's giving customers a bare physical digital instrument that has cash finality. And so the reason that you see all these companies have all these different approaches and all these different strategies of, okay, maybe $5,000 weekly limits or 40-day hold periods and all of this complicated stuff is because the fiat system is so, okay? And so our approach at Strike is as follows. If you look, let me break this down for you. If you look at the 4 payment options we allow you to, okay, bank account, debit card, wire transfer, direct deposit. So when it comes to, Bitcoin only, Bitcoin focused business, we allow you, this is all built in-house on our own licensing, on our own infrastructure, on our own banking relationships. This is a phenomenal experience. Now I've highlighted these in green, these 3, debit card, wire transfer, direct deposit, instant settlement. So you put money into the system, you take the Bitcoin out immediately. No limits. No limits. If you do pay me in Bitcoin direct deposit, if you use wire transfer, if you're using your debit card, you can take any amount of Bitcoin that you purchase with it immediately off the platform. No limits. You wire in $100 million. You buy $100 million worth of Bitcoin on Strike. You withdraw it all that same second. Period. No limits. Now, the one I'm going to put in orange is the bank account. Why the bank account? It's ACH. It's the problem I just explained, right? Is this making sense? So I actually went through, again, I'm not the best at PowerPoint and go to university, but I took the time here to kind of break this out and do pros and cons of each. Now, the bank account on the far left is everyone's favorite ease of use. You got your account and routing number, pulls directly from your bank account. It's everyone's favorite experience. It's, as consumers, it's the experience that we've kind of been tailor-made to best understand and get used to, right? Now, it's very easy. Bank account pulls, we don't charge any fees on that, so there's no fees associated with that, only on the Bitcoin buy and sell. However, it has delayed settlement, and I'll get into whether it's 1 day or 60 days if I'm a customer, how long am I waiting? I'll get there in a second. And it does higher deposit limits. Okay, it's higher than card. Right? So that's how to think about a bank account. Use a bank account on Strike. It's the only payment method where you may have to wait. Now, you can deposit $50,000 with your bank and buy and sell as much Bitcoin as you want, but it's going to take us some time potentially to allow you to get it all of it off the platform. And I'll explain more in a second. Debit card. Easy to use. Everyone loves cards. You put in your card number, whatever. That's another consumer behavioral thing that we've all gotten used to. Now, debit cards, unlike banks, settle immediately. You want to buy Bitcoin with your debit card? Take it off immediately. Instant settlement. However, debit card has fees, right? A lot of the experience of a debit card and why it's better because of networks like Visa, they're kind of sticking themselves in the middle, doing a lot of the complicated stuff, and they charge for that. It'd be very expensive. So the debit card has better settlement than ACH, but it has fees associated. So that's a trade-off that you as a customer, you make that decision on yourself. It also has lower limits. So we can do ACHs up to, tens of thousands of dollars, way up there. Debit cards, we can't do that. Cannot do that. So debit cards are for smaller orders. If you want to withdraw it instantly, you're okay paying the extra fee for that experience. Wire transfers. Now, wire transfers, in my opinion, extremely underrated. Really easy to use. All of it settles immediately. As soon as we get the wire, you can buy as much Bitcoin as you want, take it all off the platform. Instant. No deposit limits. You can wire me $1 billion and I will sell you Bitcoin. No limits whatsoever. It might have fees on the sending. So it might give you, everyone knows the wire experience, right? Like it might give you a $25 wire fee to send the money. So wires traditionally are for higher orders. If you start getting into the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand and up, I would suggest a wire. It's the best experience. The wire clears in your Strike account, you buy the Bitcoin, you take it off the platform immediately, no issues. Direct deposits, also underrated. Really easy to use, settles instantly, there's no limits. The only issue is it's kind of not on your time. It's on payroll, right? So if Bitcoin's dipping or something, you can't rush your direct deposit. You can't get paid 17 days early, right? So those are the options. That's how to think about it. I'm trying to be as transparent as I possibly can with you guys. We at Strike care deeply about just making sure that we're serving the experience you want. These are all incredible options. And if I go back to this last slide, the only single one where you will have a pending waiting to settle for you to take it all off balance is your bank account. Okay, now, just to review one more time, I'm going to be tweeting these out and stuff. These are the lightning fast payment methods. Is what I call it. Debit, wire, direct deposit. ACH, bank account, is the only thing. Here's another example, or here's another screenshot just so I'm hammering the point home to you guys. This is the slide I want to get to. Here's how it works at Strike. Now, is your ACH going to take 60 days to settle, or is it going to take 1 day to settle? Let me tell you how it works without giving up too much of our internal systems. The more you use Strike, the better experience you will get. Straight up. And that should kind of be intuitive. If we have a new customer that links a new bank, we don't know anything, right? Like if you look at the bottom sentence here, our systems learn through action. This is all data. This is the shout out to the data team. We're looking actively. So instead of working on our own shitcoin, blockchain, what I had our data team and our engineering team do is let's take a data-driven approach here. We have a customer constantly using us. We're seeing their ACHs with our bank settle faster and faster and faster. We can give them and lean in and know this is a good Bitcoiner that just wants to buy Bitcoin, stack sats, withdraw to cold storage. We can continue to increase their ability to be quicker, ACHs settle faster. If we have a brand new customer, we don't know who they are, this brand new bank that's issuing an ACH to us, it's going to take longer for our system to get used to it and for the ACH to settle. Hopefully that makes sense. So when you see people on Twitter say, oh yeah, you just got to use Strike more, they're not lying. They're not lying. And so for customers, they're like, why is my ACH taking 5 days instead of 1 day? It's like, well, if you have a DCA on Strike once a month for a penny, our systems don't know you that well, and that means that in the banking system, the ACH is going to take more time, okay? So for those of customers of Strike that use Strike a lot, your primary way to stack is the Lightning address. You're going to see this thing called Strike Instant. What Strike Instant is it's our system that's learning as you're becoming a Bitcoiner with us, and you're able to take all of it immediately off the platform, even when you use ACH in a bank. It's because your ACHs are settling faster with us. We recognize your ACH is coming in. We're like, oh, this is a good one. Boom, go, take it. Put it on a cold card. Send it to Sparrow Wallet. Do whatever you want. For newer customers that are like, man, I just signed up for Strike. My buddy is able to take everything off immediately, and I'm having to wait 4 days. This is why. This is the reason. If you want to try Instant, if you think you should be an Instant, just let me know. An Instant may be something that we sell. You want to pay $5 a month to get Instant? Maybe we could talk about that. So we'll continue to iterate through this experience and work through with you guys. I truly think we can figure this out globally. Help people get in and out of Bitcoin. This amount of friction. It's going to be a huge deal. It's so different than a business like a giant shitcoin. Couldn't care less. They just want to list assets, right? So this is as transparent as I can be about all this stuff. This is the why. The why is really ACH. Every other payment method, no problem. Instant. Take it all off. There are no more limits. You have $50,000, $50 million, 50 cents. As long as it's available, which means it was wire, direct deposit, card, or the pending bank just settled. So even if the pending bank, it might take a day or two, and it's nothing I could do about that. The only thing I can do is you use the platform more, and our data and our team is like, okay, yes, this is a good one, this is a good one, this is. That makes sense. Huge innovation for us and our customers. Now you should have no problem with your UTX. You should have no problem with limits. And when it comes to Strike, you've got some of the cheapest fees in the game, all the major on-ramps you could ever want. We've got free on-chain withdrawals. We've got all the Lightning Network capabilities, one of the best Lightning networks in the world, in my opinion. I mean, we're really, really, really proud going into a halving, going into a bull market type of experience we are allowing our customers. Really, really awesome. So, just to end it real quick, this is rolling out now. Rolling out now. It's not in everyone's hands yet. We're at the size and scale as a company where I can't just turn everything on 100%. Everyone all over the world. Right? Keep in mind, there's customers in America, got customers in Africa. We're in 70 markets. We're going to launch Europe in a second. Maybe the next time you hear from me in this format. So the way we roll out new features, new software, is very low time preference, very, very secure, engineering focused. So as of today, I think it's about a fourth of our customers will get this feature. Over the coming weeks, everyone will end up getting it. If you're super eager, if you're super pissed, you're like, I should have, like, just DM me. That's the next slide. Just DM me. Just be patient with us. This is rolling out. But what I wanted to avoid is customers seeing a new experience and be like, what the heck is going on? Like, everything's changing. That's why I do the announcement now as it's rolling out so that no one's caught off guard. So if you don't see it yet, check tomorrow. It's rolling out. We will get there in the coming weeks. Every single Strike customer will have it. If you're killing for this and you're like, oh my, I can't wait another day, just DM me. It's not the end of the world. It's just how software rolls out. But I just couldn't be prouder of the Strike team. I mean, this just shows our focus to Bitcoin-driven experience, who we're building for, what we care about. I couldn't be prouder of what we built. I think it's innovative. I think that these type of experiences is going to be the difference of onboarding tons of people, getting Bitcoin, physical Bitcoin, not ETF Bitcoin, into cold storage. I'm just overall pumped about it, and I just love building stuff that you guys asked for. It's my favorite thing. I don't like taking guesses when software go off and embark on entrepreneurs. Ship software, you listen to customers. What do Bitcoiners need? Okay, this is a problem throughout the whole industry. Limits is our big deal. We're up for the challenge. We're up for a challenge. We're focused on Bitcoin only. Build all of our stuff in-house so that we can give you unique experiences like this. All right, I got work to do. I think in the next version of this, one of these presentations, I'm hoping that it's Europe, so I got to get back to work. But you DM me, you let me know what you think, how it's going, what you need, and I'm there. Any of these, at Strike, at Jack Mallers, or our support email. We are here to help. I will talk to you all on the internet. LFG. Let's fucking peace.
The bits.
I have a few $100 million in my bank account or in Bitcoin since 10 years ago, and I don't do anything with it. I don't own any real estate, jets, or yachts. I don't think this lifestyle is for me. I like to focus on what we are doing with Telegram.
You don't own anything? Like big assets. You don't own
no big assets. Exactly.
An island in Hawaii or
no land, no real estate, nothing.
Why?
Well, because for me, my number one priority in life is my freedom. Also, for me, it was never about money, right? So I have a few $100 million in my bank account or in Bitcoin since 10 years ago, and I don't do anything with it. I don't own any real estate, jets, or yachts. I don't think this lifestyle is for me. I like to focus on what we are doing with Telegram.
You don't own anything? Like big assets. You don't own
no big assets. Exactly.
An island in Hawaii or
no land, no real estate, nothing.
Why?
Well, because for me, my number one priority in life is my freedom. Also, for me,
Essa tecnologia mesmo. Celularzinho, o cara transferindo Bitcoin, ó.
Yeah, they're slowing down, but it's not really that important, and you have to think about the bigger perspective here. Bitcoin really is exposing how most people don't seem to understand anything about economics, finance, or how our system even works. You have to understand that it's impossible for Bitcoin to have topped at $73,000, which I see a lot of people suggesting we have, as though that's even possible. Bitcoin cannot have topped at $73,000 because the dollar is going down forever. And to understand why the dollar is going down forever, you have to understand that there is an infinite supply of dollars in the Federal Reserve System. There is an infinite amount of capital out there waiting to flow into Bitcoin. Even before this money is printed, we're looking at about $1,000 trillion of capital sitting in financial assets, and $1 trillion of capital sitting in Bitcoin. But what about the unprinted dollars that haven't been printed yet but will be? Because the government is printing more money every day, and every time a bank makes a loan, it's creating new fresh money into the system. That's how the system is designed to work out. So this is the system we live in, and until people really understand the fiat system, they'll never understand what's going to happen to Bitcoin. They'll never understand. And this is really something that's been exposed at just how ignorant most people are. So this is what we're working on. We're trying to help people understand.
Was launched the same way that Vitalik launched Ethereum. Let's switch out their names and see. Let's pretend Satoshi launched Bitcoin like Vitalik launched ETH. After coming up with the idea of Bitcoin, instead of just building it, Satoshi would have contacted a former Goldman Sachs employee and a ton of blockchain experts to sell them on his great idea. He would promise the development of not only a truly decentralized form of money, no, that wouldn't be hype enough. He would tack on a truly decentralized world computer that would be impossible for any single entity to control. Eventually, Satoshi would convince some big investors that Bitcoin would blow the competition out of the water and would begin trying to figure out how to get investors' money. But he would realize raising investment is something that companies do, not decentralized open source projects. Wanting to raise investment without the regulatory headache wouldn't be fast enough for him. So he thinks to himself, what if I just create the Bitcoins for free in my own database and sell those to investors instead of registered shares in a company? And that's exactly what he does. He creates 72 million Bitcoins before the project is even up and running and sells them to investors from all around the world through this website with no limit on how many Bitcoins he could create and sell. And he makes sure to entice slow investors to get their ass moving, because the longer they wait into the sale, the fewer Bitcoins they get. He takes in over $18 million worth of investment money before a single person has got their hands on the product, and uses that money to bring his idea to life. These investors could buy as much Bitcoin as they wanted, and if he ran out of Bitcoin to sell, he would just create more out of thin air. He would basically be printing money, and in the words of the Joker,
if you're good at something, never do it for free.
He would be well aware that big investors could end up with way too much Bitcoin though, which would centralize the supply. To avoid this, he he just scraped the whole fundraising idea altogether. Kidding, there was way too much money involved. Instead, he sets up a company called BTC Swiss and makes that company responsible for ensuring that no single person gets their hands on more than 12.5% of all the Bitcoin. A year and a half after the project's announcement, the first block would finally be mined. A few months after that, Satoshi would add functionality that allowed people to create their own unaffiliated versions of digital money on top of Bitcoin so that they could replicate his approach to fundraising. Not without taking a cut, of course. Money talks, people! 10 months later, one of those unaffiliated projects that used Bitcoin as a fundraising platform would be hacked, and $50 million worth of investor money would be lost. But if Satoshi was acting anything like Vitalik, he wouldn't want this to happen, so he would send the following message to exchanges to try to prevent the price from falling further. He would then push a proposal to centrally change and alter this so-called unchangeable and unalterable blockchain in order to reverse the irreversible transaction made by the hacker, showing in clear daylight when having to choose between building something decentralized or keeping investors happy. He would choose the latter, the investors. A few years later, he would get rid of the concept of mining entirely, act like it never happened, and remove the costliness of creating more Bitcoin. Instead, power would be given in direct proportion to the number of Bitcoins somebody holds. So the more Bitcoin you owned, the more power you had over the network itself. Meaning he would technically be the de facto central authority in a system intended to operate without central control, undermining the fundamental principles of decentralization on which Bitcoin was founded on. Yes, if you replace the name Satoshi with Vitalik and replace Bitcoin with Ethereum, then that would be an accurate description of how Ethereum launched.
Nossa, que robô da hora, mano. Deitada vai só subindo. Parabéns a Tesla, né? Criou esse trem.
There are a bunch of problems with that particular theory, the labor theory of value. The biggest problem with the labor theory of value is that it's obviously not true. If I'm walking along on the beach and I find a pearl, that pearl is more valuable than something that I worked a lot on. Why? And the answer comes courtesy of the Austrian School of Economics and Ludwig von Mises. And that answer is that the value of an object is in what you are willing to pay for it. So it is not that you actually calculate the price of an object, a good, or a service with reference to how much is labor inherently worth, or land inherently worth, or capital inherently worth, or a combination thereof. That's not how you've bought any product in your entire life. The way that you buy a product is you go to the store and you decide, what is it worth to me? That is the marginal revolution. It's called the marginal revolution because the idea is that prices are set at the margin. And one of the big problems in class value of a product comes from that. There's only one, there are a bunch of problems with that particular theory, the labor theory of value. The biggest problem with the labor theory of value is that it's obviously not true. If I'm walking along on the beach and I find a pearl, that pearl is more valuable than something that I worked a lot on. Why? And the answer comes courtesy of the Austrian School of Economics and Ludwig von Mises. And that answer is that the value of an object is in what you are willing to pay for it. So it is not that you actually calculate the price of an object, a good, or a service with reference to how much is labor inherently worth, or land inherently worth, or capital inherently worth, or a combination thereof. That's not how you've bought any product in your entire life. The way that you buy a product is you go to the store and you decide what is it.
Vou no banheiro rapidinho. $3.400, mano. Ela chegou. Pô, ultrapassou isso aqui, ó. Ó, 3 e... Aqui 3.400. Aqui deu 13.700. Pra pegar o pico aqui, o pico. O pico.